That's my red line in the Democratic Party. They campaign with garbage like Hasan Piker that's pro-Hamas.
Anyway, let's take a look at another fucking dumbass whose brain has been rotted. Someone with a, significant mental issue, John Fetterman. He's got Hassan derangement syndrome too. Let's take a look.
I believe that the Democratic Party is going to become more anti-Israel. As long as we continue to do that, you make that official and you make that part of our platform. That's my red line in the Democratic Party. They campaign with garbage like Hasan Piker that's pro-Hamas.
And John, Senator Fetterman made some headlines yesterday. He said if the Democratic Party were to officially make no aid to Israel part of their official platform and essentially become an anti-Israel party, he would consider leaving the party because that would be a red line for him.
Yeah, college Dems hosting a Hasan Piker convention is really scary and concerning, former leader tells JNS. Ay. Anyway, on that note, let's get to Jake Tapper interviewing Abdul El Sayed.
A huge rally last night with Bernie and AOC.
I gotta pee.
I want to play something you said at this rally in Detroit last night.
Are we going to let 50 million in lies steal this election? Hell no. Are we going to let Trump donors, billionaires, and AIPAC lies steal this election?
Steal this election is a pretty stark term. I haven't really heard it used since 2024. To be clear, this is a close race. Congresswoman Haley Stevens is a 4-term congresswoman endorsed by outgoing Senator Gary Peters. Are you saying that if you don't win this election, it will be because it was stolen?
I believe in the rigor of the democratic process, Jake, but I also believe that the corruption of billionaire money, AIPAC money, to the tune of $50 million being spent is anti-democratic on its own terms. If you were to take all the outside spending in this race out, this would not be a close election, but it speaks to the way that, unfortunately, money from DTE, our local utility, money from Blue Cross Blue Shield, money from AIPAC has come in to try to truck this election in favor of somebody who they know is going to do their business instead of the people's. And I think that's anti-democratic on its own terms. It's why I'm running on getting money out of politics so we can put money back in people's pockets and pass Medicare for all.
So the attacks on Haley Stevens are also at issue. I know there are a lot of attack ads against you, but there are so many attacks on Haley Stevens that on Friday you posted, quote, "It's become impossible to ignore the way that people online make fun of my opponent for things that have nothing to do with her policies or politics. It's unkind and unhelpful," unquote. It's true that there are some really harsh comments about Haley Stevens that I've seen. Here's one, quote, "She's a suit with a large AIPAC bank account. That's it. She can't string together two."
I want to point out something here with this Jake Tapper conversation that's taking place. First of all, Abdul did a fantastic job. He knows how to hold his own. Okay, in the most contentious environments, and I would go so far as to say this is probably more contentious than Fox News. It's crazy, but I think Jake Tapper is probably a tougher interview for someone like Abdul El Sayed than the average Fox News guy. Because unlike Fox News, he has prestige amongst liberals, and he always will weaponize the legitimacy that he has in liberal circles to attack Muslims. Okay? And that is, I think, a more difficult conversation to have than to talk to a hostile Republican. However, one thing that I find particularly strange about this is Jake Tapper recently had the President of the United States of America on his broadcast. He's supposed to be a liberal guy. Sure, the conversation took place after Lindsey Graham's death. Having said that, the fact that Jake Tapper was far less contentious with the fascist Republican president of the United States of America than he is with a progressive running for Senate in Michigan on a platform of universal health care and disavowing AIPAC, a platform that the overwhelming majority of Democrats agree with. The fact that he's more contentious on an interview like this shows exactly what Jake Tapper believes. Jake Tapper finds Abdullah Sayed to be a far more negative influence in American politics than even Donald Trump. It's clear. It's clear.
Coherent sentences. She's a sellout who forgot how to think for herself. Corporate money can't buy her a personality.
You said we should beat the Republicans. Are you a beater?
Do you know who
Aren't
said
you
that?
woke Trump?
That was you and your campaign.
And I want to speak to that because every single time we talk about all the outside money coming in as a crutch in this election, it seems as though we're not hearing any explanation as to why. I think we saw some of it last week when the Congresswoman voted in favor of sending $3.3 billion of our tax dollars that should be spent on our healthcare and our schools to a foreign government to buy bombs and tanks. I would really like to hear a fulsome explanation of exactly what the trade-off has been. And unfortunately, $50 million doesn't fall off trees, doesn't come from nowhere. It comes because there's been some expectation on the back. So I want to know what was said to get that money into this election. But I'll be clear, I don't think it's kind to make fun of somebody for how they talk or how they show up. I also don't think it's kind to make insinuations about somebody's character as is being done to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And here's the thing about it. I've known the...
I think one is far worse than the other, by the way. Because Abdul's statements against Haley Stevens are nothing in comparison to what Haley Stevens' campaign backed by $50 million of ad spend look like. They're smearing him. They're calling him a misogynist. They don't have any evidence for this other than he disagreed with powerful women at different points in his life. It's such a ridiculous. It is the lowest I've seen these motherfuckers go. And then besides that, of course, not so subtly, terror jacketing him, saying he is a violent, woman-hating, anti-Semitic Muslim. You know how those guys are. That's the implication, right? The implication here is Abdul al-Sayed, Abdul Rahman Mohammed al-Sayed is a dangerous, aggressive, woman-hating, anti-Semitic Muslim. Now, of course, it's the Democratic Party primary, which is precisely the reason why they can't say it to that degree, right? They can't do that. Republicans will do that because they know that if they go too hard, they'll overplay their hand and liberals will get annoyed with it. So they're trying to tactically imply without outwardly saying it. Republicans will say it with their full chest, but it won't matter at that point because obviously all the liberals are going to be on the side of Abdul al-Sayed.
Congresswoman for a very long time. In fact, she's met my daughters. My daughter, 8 years old.
Apparently, the College Democrats of America was sponsored by J Street. I know. Yeah. And J Street came out and said, look, we have our disagreements with Hasan Piker, but we have no problem. We're honored to sponsor the College Democrats of America. Because guess what? While I have my disagreements with J Street, they're not insane, okay? They're not as insane as like the AIPAC-backed Democrats are. They can read the room. And now they're yelling at J Street over it. What they don't know is like I've been trying to even have a conversation with Jeremy Ben-Ami, the president of J Street.
She told her, you should be really proud of your dad, although her allies are now running ads to say that somehow I'm disrespectful to women, which...
Yeah. Breaking. Jewish Insider via Haley Cohen. College Dems conference co-sponsored by J Street is featuring Hasan Piker. J Street President Jeremy Ben-Ami said his organization is proud to sponsor the event. Failing to show up would be an abdication of our responsibility to make the case for our pro-Israel views, J Street said. Okay? Ultimately, J Street understands that there is a much wider diversity of opinion on the issue of Israel on the Democratic Party side, and if they want to continue to if they want to continue to maintain a level of support for Israel amongst Democrats, they have to allow people like myself to be a part of this equation because I'm far closer to the average person's perspective than they are. Yeah, see, he said, we had no role in the selection of speakers, and we're sure there will be speakers, including Hasan Piker, with whom we disagree. Being in venues like this is even more important when there are participants with whom we disagree. Failing to show up would be an abdication of our responsibility to make the case for our pro-Israel views. During his speech Saturday evening at the conference, Piker distanced himself from mainstream Democratic Party, condemning Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, who betray us to loud applause. No more to the Democrats who collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel. We don't need those Democrats anymore, Piker said. The College Democrats Convention is hosting several speakers who hold extreme anti-Israel views, including Democratic Socialists of America activist and Arizona congressional candidate like Deja Fox, commentator Kat Abou-Gazaleh, gun control activist and former DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, and Democratic Socialists of America endorsed congressional nominee Maylai Quiros. Wow. Georgia State Representative Ruva Roman, a Palestinian American legislator with a long record of anti-Israel activism, will also be speaking. Lineup also includes elected officials who've been critical of Israel's policies, such as Representative Jamie Raskin, Chris Van Hollen, Jason Crow. College Democrats of America is the official collegiate arm and student outreach branch of the Democratic National Committee. Neither group responded to a request for comment from Jewish Insider about their decision to invite Piker. You know what's funny? They're an outreach branch of the DNC, and the DNC has not given them, like, the DNC's given them literally basically nothing. They were talking about it. Like, their largest donor is Cherokee Nation. DNC is like a minuscule part of their funding vehicle. To be fair, the DNC is bankrupt, so that's probably why they don't have any money in the fucking bank. Yeah, Tom Steyer listened to my pleas and maxed out to Abdul. Tom Steyer contributes the maximum legal donation of $7,000 to Abdul al-Sayed's campaign, the Michigan Democratic primaries in August 4th in 16 days. Speaking of CNN, they're hating on Bernie there. Yeah, I know. I saw. I know. We're going to cover that in a second. There's a new CNN piece that came out. It's not even hating on Bernie necessarily because it makes Bernie look good. Anyway, let's finish this Jake Tapper conversation.
My daughter is now hearing about. So I'd like to hear the same kindness. I want to know whether or not the congresswoman also thinks that that's unkind and unright.
I hear your comments about the ads being run against you that are attacking you from a...
But I happen to agree with those ads. I happen to agree with the contents of those ads.
AIPAC and other organizations. But I'm specifically talking about comments you personally made about Haley Stevens.
Yeah, no,
Haley Stevens has made those comments personally about Abdul al-Sayed as well. Abdul al-Sayed, on the other hand, did not get outside. Abdul al-Sayed didn't put in a red box in his media tab on his platform to attack Haley Stevens for having a goofy voice or not knowing what she speaks of, whereas Haley Stevens did do that to Abdul al-Sayed. So campaigns right now can't directly communicate with super PACs, even though the Supreme Court just made it legal for them to do so. So what they do instead is a concept called red boxing, where they put bullet points on their media tabs for all of the friendly super PACs to get their notes from. They'll say, attack my opponent with this perspective, attack my opponent from this angle, that kind of thing, right? And Haley Stevens' media tab straight up had attack Abdul al-Sayed for, being a woman hater, basically. So technically, Abdul al-Sayed's one comment on the Dave Weigel interview is not a fucking apt comparison to the $50 million of attack ads. Yeah, here it is. Haley Stevens isn't allowed to coordinate directly with AIPAC, so that she does instead is put directions on her website telling them what flyer she wants to be